So before I start, as I know you guys have some knowledge about Citrix, right? So can anyone explain what is Citrix and how it works? Whatever knowledge you have, just let me know.
Uh, you can virtualize your applications and desktop with the help of Citrix.
Okay, and what is virtualization?
Virtualization. Just a second. I don't know whether it is.
Okay, so if I'm talking about the virtualization, that means with the help of virtualization, we can easily create multiple virtual machines on a single hardware. So the basic motto to virtualize any hardware is to utilize that particular hardware up to its 99% efficiency, but always we are trying to utilize that hardware up to 100% of efficiency, but practically it is not possible to utilize anything up to its 100%, right? So with the help of virtualization, we can utilize any hardware up to 95 or 99% of hardware resources, whatever they have that particular device has. Okay, so basically to virtualize any particular hardware, we guys are using the hypervisors, right? So anyone have any idea what are the hypervisors?
Hypervisor is on which VMs are going to create.
Hmm. And what are the types of hypervisors available into the market right now?
I have only read there is type 1 and type 2.
What is type 1 and type 2?
I guess the in the lab environment what we are going to use, that is type 2,
No,
and
type 1.
no, that is
Okay,
type 1.
in production, oh sorry. In production we are using type 1, but in test lab we will use
Yes.
type 2, yeah.
So in the type 1, I guess the operating systems is uh, operating system will be uh, hard coded on the like uh, I
Okay,
don't remember the
let
word.
let me explain. So
Yes, it's better.
basically, basically we are having two types of hypervisors which is available into the market right now. First one is type 1 hypervisor. Type 1 hypervisor is also known as bare metal hypervisor. Why? Because in production, whenever we are using the type 1 hypervisor, we directly installing hypervisor as an operating system directly onto the physical hardware, right? On other hand, coming to the type 2 types of type 2 type of hypervisors. In type 2 type of hypervisors, we will be requiring an operating system on that particular hardware, and on that particular operating system we have to install a hypervisor as an application. Means here I am telling as an application, that means this is my Windows laptop, right? So as you can see here, in this laptop I have installed VMware Workstation Pro, right? Here it is. So what I did initially, one operating system is required to install that hypervisor. On that hypervisor, I have installed this hypervisor as an application. Please remember that point. So when you are installing hypervisor as an application, that means it is type 2 hypervisor, okay? But when you are installing hypervisor directly on physical hardware as an operating system, that means it is type 1 hypervisor, which is bare metal. Means directly you are installing hypervisor on the physical metal, right? On physical hardware. Got it?
So why it is different, in the case of lab and in the case of like production environment, like we can do it same as in like in the lab environment also, right? Like type 1, like is there any specific requirements need like for that for like to be the type 1?
Look, in production, what you will get highly configured hardwares with uh, the memory in petabytes, right? And even hard drive in petabytes. Okay. So in production, you have to use type 1 hypervisor only. Why? Because we do not require any other intermediate operating system in between. Why? Because type 2 hypervisors are very slow if we compare those hypervisors with type 1. Why? Because for type 2, like, let me show you guys. So like, this is my type 2 hypervisor, and on my type 2 hypervisor, if I go to the memory tab, as you can see, my 8 GB of memory is already being utilized by my operating system itself, right? So I do not
Mhm.
want those losses. Why? Because I do not want that operating system when I have to deploy a virtual machine directly on VM. So type 1 will be preferable for production. But yeah, for my test lab, I'm okay with it. Just suppose I have created one of my domain controller. When I turn on my domain controller, my memory utilization will get increased from here, right?
Mhm.
So this is the only reason why in production we always using type 1 hypervisors, not type 2. Type 2 basically for testing perspective only. Like if you want to create a new infra and if you have to test something, so you can go for it. But in production,
So in the production also, if they are creating any testing environment, so
mhm,
they are using like type 2 or like
no,
they will be directly work
on
on type
type
1
1,
itself.
on type 1.
Okay. Okay.
So they will be having some separate hypervisor with type 1 only, okay, for testing prospect.
Okay.
So initially, the guys test the things on separate hypervisor. If everything goes fine, then they directly promote that content to or promote that lab to the primary hypervisor after successful testing. Okay.
Do we do we have any alternate option other than like hypervisor
No.
for creating like for virtualization? Do we have
So
any alternate option?
in type 2, we only have few applications available like VMware Workstation Pro, Oracle VirtualBox, Docker for type 2. For type 1, we have only two hypervisors available. Like first one is from VMware, which is vSpec client, or that is VMware ESXi host. And second one is from Citrix, which is Gen Server 01. We also have one freeware hypervisor available from uh, that is XCP-ng. I'm not getting the parent company name actually. Let me show you. It's XCP-ng. It is quite similar to hypervisor only, like Citrix hypervisor, and it has been from that company Gen Orchestra. So this is a kind of uh, open source software, and you can use this hypervisor at free of cost without any charges, because for Citrix and for VMware you must have to procure some license, right? But this is freeware.
Okay.
Okay, so now coming to the point. So basically, if we talk about the Citrix is a company. Headquarters are located in US, Florida, and basically Citrix is most popular for its two products for virtualization, which is most popular, that is known as virtual apps and virtual desktop. Earlier, those products was known as Citrix GenApp and Gen Desktop, but after the release of 7.12 version, the guys have renamed multiple products, right? Gen app to Gen, sorry, Gen app to virtual apps, and Gen desktop to virtual desktop, and Netscaler to Citrix ADC, multiple like they guys are continuously renaming their product name as per the market standard. Okay, so this is a basic
After
definition.
which version, Mahesh?
7.12.
7.12.
Yeah, you do not have to remember the exact version. You can tell after
Yeah.
release of 7.xx version. Okay,
FX.
so this is a basic definition. If you want to explore Citrix, you can go to the Google. Like if you want to check to the for revenue point of view, or for the countries, how many countries it's covering over the globe. But that definition, no one going to ask you. If someone asks you what is Citrix, so you just have, this is a basic definition. You can explain like it is a company located in US, Florida, and it is most popular for the two products, which is Citrix Gen App and Gen Desktop. Now, those applications are named as Citrix Virtual Apps and Desktop. Okay. Apart from those two products, we have few more products from Citrix like Gen Server, Gen Center, which is hypervisor, NetScaler, but those are the optional product. But these are the core components like Gen App and Gen Desktop. So please try to remember virtual apps and desktop only, not Gen App and Gen Desktop, because they are the formal name of those applications. Okay, give me a moment. Okay, so basically, this is the working and key components of Citrix. Okay, so this is a kind of network diagram, like how Citrix works. Okay, so as you can see, so I'm starting from the left hand side of your screen. So basically, how Citrix works. So the entire setup is divided into two parts. From here to the right, this is your data center, what you have created or what we will create in upcoming sessions. Okay, and this is the end user device like client, laptop, desktop, or mobile phone, whatever it is. Okay, so initially, initially, what user has to do, user has to install a application which is known as Citrix Workspace application into laptop or desktop, whatever is available for that particular user, right? And on that particular laptop or desktop, user must have to open a web browser. Why? Because user must have to enter the storefront server URL. Means basically storefront server. Sorry, basically storefront. It is a web page of company. From that particular web page, our users will be able to access their resources. Okay, means user has to open a web browser, then user must have to type some web address, and once users type any web address, it will hit our storefront server. Why? Because that particular web address or IP address is for our storefront server. So what is storefront server? Storefront server basically a web page for end user which authenticates the credentials given from the users. Okay, so once users hit the storefront URL, user will get a web page, and on that web page, what users have to do, user must have to enter their credentials. Okay. So once storefront server gets the credentials, it will directly forward those credentials to delivery controller. So basically, delivery controller, it is a brain for Citrix data center. Means any query, any request, delivery controller knows which kind of query or which kind of request to forward to which server. Okay, so just suppose a storefront server got some credentials from the users. Okay, and what storefront server will do, it will forward that query to delivery controller, and delivery controller knows like who can validate those credentials, right? So that is the only reason why I'm telling it is a brain for data center. So delivery controller knows like Active Directory server is responsible to validate those credentials. So what delivery controller will do, it will automatically forward that query to Active Directory server, like boss, please do check the credentials whether those credentials are valid or not. So once Active Directory server validates the credentials, again that request goes to the delivery controller. Then delivery controller, after successful validation of credentials, what delivery controller will do, it will forward the query to SQL server, to the database, like boss, please do cross verify which virtual machines or which applications are published for that particular user, right? So SQL server will provide some data to delivery controller, then delivery controller again forward that request to the hypervisor, like this particular user is asking to turn on those particular resources like desktop or application. So once all that process completes, that delivery controller share the data to storefront server, and after successful validation, storefront server will show the application and desktop visible for that user on the very next screen. Okay, so basically this is a very fast process. Even in nanoseconds, user just has to click and user will get the next page for sure. Okay, so basically if I am talking about the core component of Citrix, so storefront server, it is a core component. Citrix Studio, it is a core component. Citrix Director, it is a core component, and license server is also the core component. Hypervisor, it is an optional. Why? Because we can use hypervisor from VMware or from any other like from Microsoft. We can use any hypervisor as per the availability. Okay, and SQL server and Active Directory server, those are the optional servers. Means we can use Linux Active Directory server as well. And for SQL replacement, we can use MySQL as well, which is open source, right? And basically, Citrix Studio, it is a console, it is a centralized console to manage the entire data center. Means we can manage the entire data center in GUI mode with the help of Citrix Studio. Director, it is a component or it is a server which is used for troubleshooting perspective. License server, which is something relevant to allocating the license to the virtual machines. Okay, and if I talk about the gateway, so basically this is the firewall of organization, and we have also one options available from Citrix. We can use Citrix Gateway or Citrix NetScaler as a firewall, but this is the like optional thing. We can also use firewalls available from other vendors like Cisco or Fortinet. Any firewall we can select. Okay, any question here on that screen?
Yes, yes.
Mhm,
When we are talking about the components of Citrix,
mhm,
so we'll be only talking about Studio Director, licensing server, delivery controllers, storefront,
mhm.
correct?
Right.
And what about Netscaler? It won't come like under that
It's a optional thing. Look, NetScaler,
option.
it is just a firewall. Okay. So just suppose
Okay.
if you have a stable firewall in your organization from Cisco, right? And you have configured that Cisco firewall. So this is the optional thing, not the mandatory, not the core component. Like,
Okay. And is it necessary to download Citrix Workspace? Do we have any alternate option apart
no,
from this? Like,
no.
no.
The reason is
Okay.
that basically, if you want to connect any computer with RDP, like MSTSC, right? Microsoft Remote Desktop Connection. So what you will be requiring? You will be requiring that application to create a secure connection from one PC to another PC, right? In a same way, Citrix Workspace it's provide an extension or it's provide a secure session which connects the end user computer to your data center. You do not want any open source application
Like
to leak your data.
we cannot simply get the storefront web URL and we can type it over there and we cannot directly log in.
No.
So basically Citrix Workspace, it provides you the secure connections.
Yes. So somehow, actually, in earlier version of Citrix Receiver or Citrix Workspace, there was a facility, with the help of that particular version, we can directly integrate that application into the web browser. Okay. On that time, we just have to install one add-on, I think, which is still available into the market. So once you integrate that particular add-on with the web browser, you directly open web browser and it will automatically detect the workspace and it will allow you to log in with your web browser itself. Okay.
So Mahesh, once we'll download this Citrix Workspace, so through that only we'll be launching that web browser, or like how it will be?
No,
Do
look, once you
yes.
open the storefront server and once you entered your credentials, after successful validation of your credentials, your browser download one.ica extension file and that ICA extension file is opened by Citrix Workspace application to
Okay,
launch your
okay,
session. Okay.
okay. And okay, so whatever you explained, this is for the internal user, right?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So delivery. So in the first go only, it will directly, like whenever the user will be typing, like for example, if we
Hmm.
are typing the credentials on the storefront,
Hmm.
so it will connect to the delivery controller. It will ask the delivery controller, and then delivery controller will be checking with the AD whether the
Yeah.
user's credential is right or not. So at the same time, it will be checking with the SQL server, or it will go back to the storefront and inform that
No, 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 no,
particular.
no, no. It will not. It will first go. It will go to the AD server. Then it will ask
Okay.
SQL server for
At
database
the
to
same
check
time,
the data.
like
Yeah.
once it is get confirmed, like okay, this is the like right user, then at the same time, before informing to the storefront, it will check with the SQL server,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Right.
And what it will do, what it will check with the SQL server?
Okay. So in SQL server we are having three database available that I will cover in coming session. So one most important database is for site settings and users data. Like if I have published a Windows 10 machine along with some applications, just suppose any application Office 365 I have published for a particular user, right? So it will check for that particular user who is trying to log in. It will check the site information or machine informations for that particular user with SQL server, and after that it will publish all the content or all the applications and desktop to end user in the very next click.
Okay, you mentioned like three kinds of database it will create,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
One is site settings and
Monitoring
others.
and logging.
Okay, monitoring and logging.
So actually, database configuration is not just a part of discussion
Mhm.
for this
Yes, yes,
slide
sure,
because it is a some
sure,
core
sure,
component. We will see it when we will be
sure,
configuring the SQL server. Okay.
sure, sure, sure. Thank you.
Okay. Any other question?
So how come like here there will be no communication with the studio, right? While logging,
Look, Studio is for the Citrix administrators, not for the end users, right?
not for the end user, and from director to.
Directory is also for the administrator to troubleshoot the issues, not for the users. Okay.
Correct,
So
correct, correct.
all the above three. are for the Citrix administrator. Users has nothing to do until we want.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Mahesh, I was studying this part, and there was something related to STA. So where it will come in the picture here?
Not here. Actually, STA is a secure ticket authentication. Okay, which is
Okay.
responsible to create a secure session between this to this. That's it.
Okay.
Okay, when we will
So
be launching any session, it will show us the it will encrypt that particular ICF file with a secure ticket. That's it. How it will work. Okay, and
so where it will get created?
in NetScaler gateway for the same, we will be requiring Citrix NetScaler.
Okay.
Okay, but again, it is not mandatory. It is an optional thing. Okay,
The STA.
yeah, ST1.
Okay.
Okay, going forward. So basically, the entire series I have divided into the 10 lectures or 10 sessions. Give me a moment. I'm getting a call. Okay, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, so for Citrix, I have divided the entire series into the 10 lectures or into the 10 sessions. Okay, so as you can see, first session is prerequisite and introduction. That's what we are covering right now in this lecture. Okay, in the second one, from lecture second to lecture 8, all those lectures will be with the practicals only. Okay, the live practical. So in the second one, we will learn how to install and configure delivery controllers and other core components. In the third one, we will learn how to install and configure the Citrix hypervisor. In the fourth one, we will learn how to create a site and how to add delivery controller to that site. In the fifth one, we will learn how to install and configure the VDA agent. In the sixth one, we will learn how to create the machine catalogs. Okay. In the seventh one, we will learn how to create the delivery groups. Eighth one will be for Citrix storefront server installation and configuration. In the ninth one, we will test our entire deployment, like what we have deployed, how our data center will work. Okay. And in the 10th one, it is for troubleshooting in some real-time scenarios, which type of questions and backup plan we will discuss. Like if something goes down, in that case, how to switch the entire operations to the standby servers or additional servers. Okay. So this is how I have divided the entire series. So basically 10 sessions will be required. So first session is very shortened one. Why? Because it is just an introduction. I think second, third, fourth, and fifth sessions, uh, those particular sessions will be more than 1.5 hours. Means you can consider them for almost 2 hours actually, because installing and setting up the core components, it will take time up to 2 hours. Okay, so please be prepared for those
Mahesh,
kind of things.
sorry to interrupt.
Mhm.
This is like testing environment, correct? And so how we are going to troubleshoot all the scenario based questions, like which will be keep asking in the interview sessions also, like during
Uh,
interview time.
this is test environment for us. What we are doing, we are creating exact mirror copy of data center what you will get in your production. Okay, on separate hardware itself. So we will be able to create all the scenario based questions here in our data center itself. Okay, so we are just creating a mirror copy of data center what you will have or what you will get in your organization. How many servers you have, you will create each and every server, no worries for that. Okay,
Okay.
so
Like
coming. Mhm.
I'm just thinking about like troubleshootings, like troubleshooting steps, like how we can troubleshoot all the things, like how can we configure everything.
Okay,
So
so to create those scenarios, what we can do, we can simply turn off our delivery controller and we will see what impact is going on data center. We can turn off the SQL server, then we can see which users are impacting, which services are impacting. We can
yeah.
turn off the storefront server. We can turn off the hypervisor. These are the scenarios in data centers. If something goes down, how it will react, right? So
Yes, yes.
you have nothing to worry. Okay, so we are running short of time actually. So coming to the virtual machines in test lab. Okay, so first machine will be our domain controller. I have allocated 2 GB of RAM to that domain controller. Why? Because we have nothing to do with the domain controller. We just have to promote it as a domain controller with ADDS roles, and we have to create some users and computers. Okay, second machine will be our delivery controller, and in that second machine, we will configure each and every component of Citrix like storefront studio, then delivery controller, director, each and everything we will configure in DDC.
Under
Then
domain controller, what we are going to install?
ADDS roles like Active Directory Domain Services role for authentication
Okay,
purpose.
and why it is necessary? Like,
Because it is always recommended to use domain credentials only. We cannot use local users, right? So coming to the okay, in delivery controller, we will configure each and every core components. Gen server 01 and Gen server 02, those will be our hypervisor. We will host all of our virtual machines and application on the hypervisor only. And Windows 10 and Windows 10 CL02, these will be our client machines. Like we will test our infra with those client machines. Okay, like if I want to log into my storefront server, how you will do that. Okay, and one more thing, in domain controller we will configure one more role, which is DSCP. Why? Because we need a DSCP scope for IP allocations to all of our virtual machines. Okay, any doubt here?
No.
okay.
Okay, so from tomorrow onwards we will connect with this, and it's 6 a.m. I think it's too early for me. I'm not sure why, because my alarm actually
Uh, will it be
yesterday.
only half an hour session, Mahesh?
No, yet for today it's half an hour session. If you have any concern or any query, I'm sharing another invite to you guys. Okay, after this, because I have some limitations for a session for 40 minutes only. Okay, for that Zoom client, because I'm not using any premium subscription of Zoom. Okay, so if you still have some
Okay.
question, I'm terminating this call and I'm sharing new invite to you within a second or a minute. Okay, please join with
Yeah,
that.
sure. Sure.